when something is offered that makes sense to us and that we understand and offers good value and where we don't worry about losing. And the one problem with the investment business is that things don't come along in an orderly fashion, and they never will. I mean, it isn't like every day. Charlie always thought I did too many things. He thought if we did about 5 things in our lifetime, we'd end up doing better than if we did 50, and that we never concentrated enough. So that we would rather have, if we've got $335 billion now in treasuries, we would rather have conditions that are developed where we would have like $50 billion or something like that. But that just isn't the way the business works. And
运动就补福乐超能蛋白，日本专利氨基酸，每杯37克蛋白质。运动营养专家福乐超能蛋白，优洛新上市。
We have made a lot of money by not wanting to be fully invested at all times, and say that we have a roughly $40 billion a year coming in, and we start with 335. If you told me I had to invest $50 billion every year till we got down to $50 billion, that would be the dumbest thing in the world to invest in that manner. Things get extraordinarily attractive very occasionally. The long-term trend is up. Nobody knows. And I certainly don't know. Greg doesn't know. Ajit doesn't know. Nobody knows what the market is going to do tomorrow, next week, next month, and nobody knows what business is going to do tomorrow, next week, or next month. But they spend all their time talking about it because it's easy to talk about, and but it has no value. I've never found anybody I wanted to listen to on the subject, and on the other hand, I've found that leafing through things like that big Japanese book that I can't read anymore, that's a treasure hunt, and every now and then you find something, and occasionally, very occasionally, but it'll happen again, that I don't know when. It could be next week, it could be 5 years off, but it won't be 50 years off. We will be bombarded with offerings that we'll be glad we have the cash for. Well, in respect to real estate, it's so much harder than stocks in terms of negotiation of deals, time spent, the involvement of multiple parties in the ownership. Usually when real estate gets in trouble, you find out you're dealing with more than the equity holder. But there have been times when large amounts of real estate have changed hands at bargain prices, but usually stocks were cheaper, but they were a lot easier to do. So Charlie did more real estate. Charlie enjoyed real estate transactions, and he actually did a fair number of them in the last 5 years of his life. But he was playing a game then, and it was an interesting game to him. But I think if you'd asked him to make a choice when he was 21, he had to either be in stocks exclusively the rest of his life or real estate the rest of his life, he would have chosen stocks in a second. There's just so much more opportunity, at least in the United States. There's so much more opportunity that presents itself in the security market than it does in real estate. And in real estate, you're usually dealing with a single owner or a family that owns maybe a large property they've had a long time. Maybe they've borrowed too much money against it. Maybe the population trends are against them. But to them, it's an enormous decision. When you walk down to the New York Stock Exchange, you can do billions of dollars worth of business totally anonymous, and you can do it in 5 minutes. And the trades are complete when they're complete. In real estate, when you make a deal, a big deal with a distressed lender, when you sign the deal, then you go into another phase. I mean, then people start negotiating more things, and it's a whole different game, and a different type of person, to some extent, enjoys the game. We did a few real estate deals that came our way in 2008 and 9, but the amount of time that they would take us compared to doing something intelligent and probably better in securities, there was just no comparison. I mean, in a real estate deal, every sentence is as important as a person, and in stocks, if somebody needs to sell 20,000 shares of Berkshire or something, and they call us and the price is right, it's done in 5 seconds. We made a great deal of money because we're willing to act faster than anybody around. Jessica Toombs is, I think she's the stepdaughter or step-granddaughter of Ben Rosner, a manager of ours. And in 1966, I got a call from a fellow named Feldsteiner in New York, and he said, I represent Mrs. Annenberg. And there were actually 9 Annenberg sisters, I believe, before Walter Annenberg came along as the son. But he said, we have a business we'd like to sell you. So I called Charlie up, and I got a few details, and it sounded very interesting. And Charlie and I went back to the office of Will Feldsteiner in New York, who was a marvelous guy. Never met him since, but he was handling things for Mrs. A. Simon, but her name was Annenberg, and her husband had been the partner of Ben Rosner, but he had died, and Ben got kind of tense about working with her, and so he offered us this business at a bargain price. He offered us a business for $6 million. It had $2 million of cash. It had a $2 million piece of property in a 900 block of what's the key street in Philadelphia down there, Market Street, and it was making $2 million a year pre-tax, and the price was $6 million. And Charlie and I went back to this place, and Ben Rosner was there, and he just was upset about doing business with his partner's widow. She was extremely wealthy, and he wasn't enjoying it. He was very nervous about selling it, and he said to me and Charlie, he said, I'll run this business for you until December 31st, and then I'm out of here. And I got Charlie, we went out in the hallway, and I said, if this guy quits at the end of the year, you can throw away every book on psychology you've ever read. And so that began we bought the company and had a great relationship. And did I know that morning when I got a phone call from Will Feldsteiner that did his background about it? I've had a couple of times, and that was one of them, where people in the East felt that they had a stereotype in their mind of what people from the Midwest were like. And Ben had been married. His first marriage was to a woman from Iowa, and he just figured that anybody from the Midwest was okay. And the trick when you get in the business with somebody, or get in a room with somebody like that, and they want to sell you something for $6 million that's got $2 million in cash and a couple million in real estate and is making $2 million a year. You don't want to be patient then. You want to be patient and waiting to get the occasional call. My phone will ring sometime, with something that, wakes me up. I may be sleeping in there or something, but you just never know when it'll happen, and that's what makes it fun. I mean, so patience. It's a combination of patience and a willingness to do something that afternoon if it comes to you. You don't want to be patient about acting on deals that make sense, and you don't want to be very patient with people that are talking to you about things that will never happen.
We're very patient when we're looking at opportunities, and as you touched on, we want to act quickly. But while we're being patient, never underestimate the amount of reading and work that's being done to be prepared to act quickly. Because we do know, be it equities, but I would include a variety of private companies that when the opportunity presents itself, we're ready to act. And that's a large part of being patient, is using it to be prepared.
It's really nothing. There's been 3 times since we acquired Berkshire that Berkshire has gone down 50% in a fairly short period of time. 3 different times. Nothing was fundamentally wrong with the company at any time, but this is not a huge move. Made a really major change. It didn't. If it had gone up 15% instead of down 15%, people think they take that with remarkable grace. but if it makes a difference to you whether your stocks are down 15% or not, you need to get a somewhat different investment philosophy, because the world is not going to adapt to you. You're going to have to adapt to the world, and you will see a period certainly in the next 20 years, you'll see a period that will be in what somebody in the market described one time as a hair curler compared to anything you've seen before. I mean, it just happens periodically. The world makes big mistakes, and surprises happen in dramatic ways, and the more sophisticated the system gets, the more the surprises can be out of right field. That's part of the stock market, and that's what makes it a good place to focus your efforts if you've got the proper temperament for it, and a terrible place to get involved if you get frightened by markets that decline and get excited when stock markets go up. I don't mean to sound particularly critical. I mean, I know people have emotions, but you got to check them at the door when you invest. Well, everybody gets setbacks, and some people have particularly bad luck in that respect, and others get through with fairly minors. But Charlie, he had setbacks. I had setbacks. I mean, it's part of life, and they're not any fun. I don't have any great advice for you about having the time of your life while you're having some major setback. But it comes with lifetime. You certainly have a setback when you die. And so everybody's got that setback guaranteed to them. But some people get, and I mean, it isn't a laughing matter in a sense, because, I mean, people get extraordinary bad luck, and other people get extraordinary good luck. Usually the people who get good luck don't really think it was so much luck as themselves, but you're just going to have it. I think that you're less likely to have it in terms of medical problems, in terms of various things in life. I mean, you were born at a good time. I mean, if you look all the way through the history of China, when would you rather have been born? 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, or now? It's just hands down, you'd be lucky. I mean, if I came from 20 generations of shepherds, I think I get kind of tired of my life just looking at these sheep every day. But we can sit here and I can watch Nebraska not quite play the same game of football that we played 20 years ago, but I mean, everything in life has been made so much better that you've got to figure that you do a lucky straw by staying in the womb for a couple 100,000 years and then just emerging at the right time. So I would focus on the things that have been good in your life rather than the bad things that happen, because bad things do happen. But it can often be a wonderful life. You could get terrible breaks in it. I mean, so far that really hasn't happened with me, but it's happened with some of my friends. But you get some bad breaks from time to time. But for 94 years, I've been able to drink whatever I want to drink, and they predict all kinds of terrible things for me, but it hasn't happened yet. So there's more capital intensity going on with the Magnificent Seven than there was a few years ago. I mean, basically, Apple has not really needed any capital over the years, and it's repurchased shares that a dramatic amount of reduction. Whether that world is the same in the future or not is something. Hollywood's answer was always to get their money from other people to put up the capital. A lot of people have gotten very rich in the country by essentially figuring out how to get others to put up the capital. And that's what people do in the money management business, and they get very, very rich because they get an override on other people's capital. And incidentally, if all of you were paying 1% for investment management fees at Berkshire last year, you would have paid $8 billion for managing, and you really wouldn't have had to do it. But, investment management is a very good game because other people put up the capital and you charge them for the capital, whether they do well or not, and then you charge them a lot more if they do well. I mean, it's a well-designed business for the people who practice it, and who can blame them? I mean, that is capitalism, but and I saw that in operation when I was working at Solomon, but I didn't need to see it. I knew what existed anyway. The trick in life is to get somebody else's capital and get an override on it. Charlie and I decided it wasn't too elegant a business after a while, but we were not criticizing the efficacy of it. It just didn't appeal to us after a while. I did it for 12 years, though, or something like. Not really. The one difference that Charlie and I did from other people is we put all our own money in into it, so we did share the losses with our own capital, but we got an override on other people's capital. Capitalism in the United States has succeeded like nothing you've ever seen, but what it is it's a combination of this magnificent cathedral, which has produced an economy like nothing the world's ever seen, and then it's got this massive casino attached. So you've got the cathedral and the casino, and in the casino, everybody's having a good time, and there's lots of money changing hands and everything, but the cathedral is what, got to make sure the cathedral gets fed too, because the temptation and the temptation's very high now, is to go over to the casino where people say, we've got magic boxes and all kinds of things that'll do wonderful things for you. And that's where people are happiest. That's where you get the most promised to you. That's where the most money is for the people that are pushing things. And, the balance between the casino and the cathedral it's very important that the United States in the next 100 years make sure that the cathedral is not overtaken by the casino, because people really like to go to casinos. and it's just so much more fun, and they ring bells, and when you win, and they bring you drinks and everything else, and it's designed to move money from one pocket to another. And in the cathedral, they basically are designing things that will be producing goods and services for 300 and some million people, like it's never been done before in history. It's an interesting system we developed, but it's worked. It dispenses rewards in what seems like a terribly capricious manner. I mean, the idea that people get what they deserve in life, and it's hard to make that argument. But if you argue with it, any other system where it seems to work better, the answer is we haven't found one. So I'll leave it to the next generation to send me the answer and by Ouija board or whatever works. The teachers you get in your life have this incredible impression on you, and a lot of it are the formal teachers you have, but some are informal teachers too. I mean, I learned from certain employers, so much. You really hope you're learning from everybody you find who's well-intentioned and has had a lot of experience, and I had a lot of good luck in that. But I would say that where I was really lucky was my dad was in the investment business. So I would go down on Saturday and I'd wait for him to go to lunch with, and I'd read the books that were around there that nobody else ever read. And they talked to me, numbers talked to me. I could never get my fill of them, and then I discovered the public library, and I read every book there was on investments, literally, in the Omaha Public Library at 19th and Harney. And, I enjoyed learning about that. Unlike Charlie, if Charlie was reading about electricity, he would want to have known everything that Thomas Edison knew and more, and go through the same thought processes and understand how everything worked. I didn't care how it worked. I just cared whether it worked. And that's a limitation. I'm confessing here. I'm not bragging. As Charlie would say, I mean, people would always say if you could only have lunch with one person living or dead, who would it be? And Charlie said, I've already had lunch with all of them because I've read all their books, basically. And he really did it. I think having curiosity and actually finding sympathetic teachers is very useful. I ran into a couple of teachers that both in high school and college. In fact, I would say that I went to three different universities, and I went to high school in Washington, and at each place I found about 2 or 3 really outstanding people, and I just spent my time with them and didn't pay much attention to the other classes. And I was lucky to find something that really fit me very early on. If my ambition had been to become a ventriloquist or whatever the hell it might have been, it wouldn't have worked. I'd have spent hours and hours and hours, and I wouldn't have been any good when I got through. So I don't believe that. I think there was that book that talked about spending 10,000 hours at something. I could spend 10,000 hours at tap dancing, and you'd throw up if you watched me, you know. But if I spent 10 hours reading Ben Graham, I would be damn smart when I got through. So minds are really, really different. I watch great bridge players, and I watch great physicians. I mean, people really, really, really have different talents. And, you know, I don't know. I think you're supposed to have 88 billion cells in your brain. I'm not sure that all of mine are flashing bright lights, but you are different than anybody else. That's what my dad always used to tell me, that essentially that, you know, you're something different. It may not be good at the moment, but you find your own path, and you will find the people in schooling that want to talk to you. People that teach in general, they love having a young student who's actually really interested in the subject, and they'll spend extra time with you. They'll do all kinds of things and I ran into that. I had Graham and Dodd at Columbia. Well, Dave Dodd treated me like a son, basically, and but I was interested. Excuse me, I was interested in what they were saying, and they found it kind of entertaining. And I was so interested, and so I would just, I would look around at you know, what really fascinates you. I wouldn't try and be somebody else. And then I would, you'll find the teachers at a school, and you'll find some outstanding people that are teachers. I've had at least 10 people that have had huge impacts on my life, and every one of them was positive, you know, because I got to select, in a sense, and a number of people really like helping younger people. You know, I found that in school, and probably helps to look a little bit lost and all that. Like you need help, but I would say my school experiences were good, but were really very good. But I attribute it much more to the individual than to the institution.